Welcome back to this episode of the Shooting Bricks podcast. And man, a lot has happened seemingly every week, but last week, a lot of interesting words have been said. And we'll get into most of that in a little bit. But first, as always, I'm Jared Castillo, and I'm joined by.
Daniel Huynh here. Just wishing y'all, hope you had a happy week. And honestly, I don't really have any much addition to say here, unfortunately. But joining me as well.
I mean, I was expecting something, Falcon, Winter Soldier, Invincible. I so much stuff happened
Bachelor.
over this weekend. You know what I'm saying? But hey, shout out to Invincible if you guys haven't checked that out on Amazon
Yes,
Prime
sir.
Video. It's an amazing series, quick little series to watch. But of course, it's your boy Really Real Gerrel Sales, and of course we have.
Yo, what up? This is Skyler, and I love basketball.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great thing. Great creation.
Very-
Thanks, Dr. Naismith.
Very,
Yes,
very simply
Canadian
put,
born.
we love basketball. And shout out to Dr. Naismith, too. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not every day you get to sit down and just have a chat for like 40 minutes to an hour about some basketball topics. Because honestly, this is, and many people know this is like the highlight of my week. Just being able to sit down with the homies, just chill out for a bit. You know, we all have busy, hectic lives and we're all adults and stuff. And it gets really, really difficult to kind of figure things out sometimes. But, sometimes just sitting down talking about basketball, that's what kind of gets people going. And speaking of getting people going, we talked about the play-in tournament, and by all accounts, we're kind of in agreement that it's a good thing, right? Unless something happened between the last time we talked about it and now. Remind me again, we're all good on it. We think it's a great idea, correct?
It's
Yes.
entertainment.
Yeah.
It's makes the
Competition.
league better. Yes.
Competition makes the league better, gets rid of tanking. Well, apparently, some of the biggest stars in the NBA do not see it that way because first we talked about Luka, we talked about Mark Cuban. They said they didn't like it. Now, guess what? LeBron James says he doesn't like it either. And it's super interesting because he said, quote, "Whoever came up with that shit needs to be fired," per Dave McMenamin. Now, I think that is extremely interesting because the Lakers, when LeBron said this, they were actually they were tied for seventh with the Dallas Mavericks, Portland Trailblazers, and themselves. Now, the thing is, the Lakers have won a game against the Nuggets, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're correct.
Sans LeBron James, because he's going to be out for against
2 games.
the Clippers and the Suns, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So that's potentially maybe another 2 losses, which could drop them down back to the 7th spot. Potentially, okay, G, you don't have to look around. You don't have to look incredulous. Potentially, right? So it could potentially be another 2 losses for them. And so LeBron said he really doesn't like that after they have just been on this really bad tear, 3-7 in their last 10. And it's such a weird thing because when the Lakers were up top, they were fine. And then now that the Dallas Mavericks are in 6th, tied for 6th with the Lakers currently, they're like, okay, no, we're good. We don't want to talk about it. But it seems like whenever there's a team that falls into that 7th spot, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, we hate this. This is garbage. Blah, blah, blah. And why? I mean, the the owners, the governors, whatever, wouldn't have voted for it by themselves. They needed the players to buy into that as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. Right? And
They all bought into it in the first place, including Mark Cuban.
And didn't LeBron, like, I don't have the quote ready, but didn't he was in favor of it last year?
yeah,
So
Yeah. He's a competitor. This is who LeBron's always been. It's just his competitive nature. When he's winning MVP, he loves the MVP award. When he's not winning MVP, what is the MVP award? He called himself the greatest player of all time after winning 3. LeBron just declares things, that's part of who he is, depending on who he is, and falls into his competitive nature. So the comment doesn't really surprise me personally.
right. And there's a few more things that I want to put in here that kind of puts a little bit of put things into context. Let's put it that way. So Mark Stein on Twitter said, quote, the best argument against the play-in is that this season was not the time because of the short off-season, right? He continues, adding stress on top of the schedule / COVID changes draining all team or COVID challenges, excuse me, draining all teams. But that's this season. To make the regular season more meaningful long term, it's a clear plus. On the flip side, J.A. Adonde says, quote, if the play-in ends up costing the NBA, the Lakers, and Celtics for the playoffs, you got to figure there will be consequences. Not lost jobs, but that format would change. And so I posited the question to you guys, and Skylar kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier. Does LeBron, and by extension Luka and Mark Cuban, do they have a legitimate gripe with the play-in tournament? And
I absolutely. Oh, go. Sorry. Finish.
And something that was also brought up was that instead of making it 7, 8, 9, 10, just make it 8, 9, 10. So go ahead.
I absolutely have no sympathy for LeBron James, Mark Cuban, and Luka Doncic here. This is a case of where, you know, both parties, the Dallas Mavs and the LA Lakers, being completely butthurt over their situations. We all know that the Mavs and the Lakers haven't had the most smoothest of regular seasons so far, especially in the Lakers case. We've been hampered by injuries all season long. I think the only reason it's pretty clear, the only reason LeBron James is coming out and lashing out against the idea of the play-in tournament is because the Lakers have been 3-7 in the last 10 games. And Anthony Davis, I read the stat before the Washington game the other night, was only averaging 16 points a game before ever since coming back. So I just have this simple message for LeBron. Like, LeBron, like, you gotta realize you're in a competition here. This is also happens to be an entertainment business. Like, you're just a player. You're not ultimately like, yes, I support player empowerment, but ultimately at the end of the day, you're a player, not an owner. You can only affect the decision so much. It's up to you to adapt to your environment. So if you want to avoid the play-in tournament, simply stop playing like shit, because like the Lakers have been piss poor in the last 10 games. There's a reason why we have fallen to around 6 or could fall in 7 again, because we've been piss poor. That's all I have to say here.
I agree with that. I'm gonna touch on that a little bit, but go ahead, G.
I don't know if we're gonna touch up more on the Lakers, but I totally agree with you, Daniel, there that the Lakers have been ass. Garbage, trash, horrible. And it shouldn't even come up to this point where we are in this position where LeBron voices his frustration to the media, because that's all I see it as. And that's why I agree with Skyler here. It's LeBron being LeBron. He's frustrated. He's been sitting out majority of these games that we've been losing because LeBron was playing some pretty amazing ball before he got his ankle demolished by, who was it, Solomon Hill? Whoever it was. But
I think it was.
Anyways, to a certain degree, I agree with the last statement that was made about making changes to the play-in tournament. Maybe more focusing on that 8th spot rather than the 8th and 7th spot, depending on what the records are. Because, I understand it's competition and I'm all for it. I don't want to get rid of the play-in tournament, but if we were going to make some critiques to it, then I would suggest that be the critique, the 8th, 9th, 10th seed. Because if I'm at the 7th seed with a 45 win season and I have to go up against a 35 win team, and we just so happen to have an injury, CJ McCollum and the Trailblazers, for instance, because they seem to be that team that's always around that spot because they're always injured, and I happen to have one injury and we'll go up against the New Orleans Pelicans that's not ready, obviously, and they get one game on us, I would be mad because we worked all season long to get that 45 win season to end up potentially losing it. And I understand, I agree with what Daniel's saying, but just to find some critique out of it, that's where my stance is. But it's a dog-eat-dog world. It's the NBA. LeBron can't take all the blame for it. The Lakers have been trash. Like I've been saying, we should not have even been in this position. You are professional players. AD's averaging 16 points coming back. We shouldn't have been forcing the ball into him. I understand he needs to get back into things, but the Lakers shouldn't even be in this position for us to even be talking about LeBron making this quote. But can't wait to hear what Skyler has to say on the matters.
Absolutely. I said a lot of it, and shout out to Snoop Dogg with G's Doggy Dog World quote there. But anyways, great tune off a great album, Doggy Style, 93. What up? But anyways, I concur by a lot of what I said earlier, really, that I think it is LeBron being LeBron. And at the end of the day, yeah, you got to fight. And LeBron's a competitor, and he knows that. He knows that. And it's just sometimes he says these quotes. I've watched it for his entire career. We all remember, after he lost to the Miami, after he lost in the finals, saying, y'all got to wake up and go to work next day, and I'm still LeBron James, 3-1. That made me the greatest player. This is just another one of those, okay, LeBron, you're saying this because you're LeBron. And he always will do that. And so I accept it in his case. Of course, it's just the competitive nature. It's just, it doesn't even, make sense for LeBron to say he doesn't want to play in tournament just because he's in it right now. If I recall as well, he was in favor of it. And it's just a clear example. LeBron has been on record saying different things before. He knows he's LeBron James. He knows he can say whatever he wants. He knows he started the player empowerment era. So, of course, I see exactly why he's saying this, because they're in a position to make the playoff tournament, so play in tournament. So he's upset. And that's all it is to me. I'm not really surprised. And shout out to Anthony Davis balling out against Denver. Love that guy. And he's going to need to step it up for the Lakers. But I'm sure we'll get into that more. I have faith in AD. I think the Lakers will be just fine. I'll be the optimist here. And I think LeBron is just, trying to get himself motivated to not be in the play-in tournament.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because when LeBron was talking all this mess about the play-in tournament last year, March 26th, he actually said that, you got, quote, you got Portland, you got Memphis, New Orleans, and Sacramento tinkering around there. So if there's 5 or 10 games left, why not those guys battle it out? Make them play each other all 5 games. So, I mean, he's fine with it. But the second it's on his, now that he's there, he's like, oh, no, it's bad, it's horrible. But I agree with I agree with what you guys are saying about having the play-in tournament just be 8, 9, 10, because you brought up the point, G. That's actually a similar point that I was reading a Bleacher Report article that an executive brought up. What if, the 7th seed is 4 games above the 8th seed, and then all of a sudden they just play 1 game, and then all of a sudden they're out. That entire season is wasted, and then all of a sudden you have coaches whose jobs are on the line, and other people whose jobs are on the line if they don't make it to the play-in tournament or advance past that. And so there's a lot of different metrics that we have to take into account to determine what is the best course of action when it comes to the play-in tournament, because right now it's still in its infancy, very much so. So I think that what LeBron is saying does hold some merit, I guess, because he is LeBron. Whatever he says carries a whole ton of weight. So if he says he's not for it, obviously Adam Silver's going to be like, okay, well, now we got to change this up because our biggest star, our most marketable star, is going against what we're saying. And at the end of the day, that's a battle the NBA is going to lose. So thinking of it financially, it's going to be in the NBA's best interest to think, okay, well, let's fix it next year. If we're going to have it, because like we talked about a few weeks ago, the governors, the owners, whatever have you, they're very much in favor of this because it's just reduced tanking. So it's going to be a very interesting situation moving forward. And if the Lakers do remain in that 7th seed, I don't think you'll be hearing the last of LeBron talking about this. And you guys talked about AD. I mean, I understand that, what was it, like a high ankle Achilles?
AD was Achilles. That's
Yeah.
we gotta take that serious. I did want to touch up before we go into another topic. Because I know I stated it earlier as well, and you kept referencing what LeBron was saying on March 26th of 2020. We also got to take into account the context, the situation. LeBron's statement may have been, I'm all for this play-in tournament because there's a specific situation going on with the NBA getting shut down. Shout out to Rudy Gobert. Shout out to Rudy Gobert, but keep your hands to yourself, folks. But anyways, this is a different situation, a different scenario, full season, technically kind of, that didn't have a major break. So that's probably why his feelings are a little bit different now. But go ahead, Jarrod.
And also I was thinking, like, something popped up. He talked about the play-in tournament actually in 2018, and back then he didn't like it. And then 2020 rolls around because of the COVID season. He's like, okay, yeah, it's fine. 2021 rolls around. It's like, no, it's not. It's not great. So it
Yeah.
is a weird situation. Skyler said he is a competitor. That is his thing. But also lost in the sauce is the fact that Jay Adonde, he mentioned how if the Lakers and the Celtics don't make it past the play-in, that it all of a sudden the playoffs are just not worth watching and there's going to be consequences, right? And so I just want to get this quick thought from you guys. What do you guys think of the Lakers prioritizing maybe like four teams in the entire league? Because that was a counterpoint that was made to Jay Adonde's point that the NBA only cares about four of its major teams instead of all 30 of it.
Well, I mean, to his comments, I mean, I
I mean,
guess
he's
there's
not
a
wrong.
little there's a little bit truth of it. Like, yeah, let's be honest here. The like I said before, the NBA is an entertainment entity. There and it's a league that's unlike the NFL. It's based around glamour. So of course the league will have focus on teams in big markets like Miami, New York, LA, Golden State, the Bay Area, Seattle. But that being said, it's still a competition at the end of the day. So I have a very mixed bag response, but he is right. The league tends to lean towards big market teams, but at the end of the day, like they will cater to small teams, small markets when they need to, and they have been.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take a quote straight from Daniel himself, the man with all the hot takes. This is a star-driven league, so I have to disagree. If there's a star on a team, shout out to the Charlotte Hornets. Look how much play they're getting. You know what I'm saying? Social media wise, ESPN, because they have a star. Who's the star? LaMelo Ball. Look at the New Orleans Pelicans. They had Brandon Ingram, they had Lonzo Ball, but the main attraction there is Zion Williamson. They're getting a lot of TV run, even if they're getting blown out by the Nets. These aren't big markets. These are small markets. So with that being said, as long as these teams have star power, the NBA cares for them. That's my stance on it.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, for me personally, I think first of all you have to look at the clear reality that the NBA is a business and that certain teams always have had that cachet. The Lakers, the Celtics, the Knicks, the Warriors, the Heat, since they've come in as well, and that will always be there. That being said, I do go back to the Chris Paul trade. I do go back to certain elements where they've shown the collective bargaining agreement,
So
where they've
stupid.
shown favor to small markets. So I feel as though the NBA, you can always say that, and there's always an element of truth, but you can also find examples where they know that narrative exists, and so they're trying to go against that narrative. So I think in certain ways it will always balance itself out, but also I think the Lakers, Knicks, and Celtics will always be the Lakers, Knicks, Celtics, Warriors, Heat, and you'd be naive not to think that those franchises do carry a certain level of cachet with them.
Yeah, and G, you talked about stars
Agreed.
and the Pelicans, and something interesting that I just recalled just now was that initially the reason why the NBA wanted to bring the to have the play-in tournament, I think one of the reasons why was because Zion and the Pelicans were in striking distance of making it into the playoffs, right? And that's why they had the whole bubble experience. But because they flamed out so spectacularly, it didn't work. Because the NBA was hoping for a LeBron Zion 1-8 matchup, which didn't happen. Instead, we got LeBron AD versus CJ and Dame, which was fantastic in its own right. So, I mean, I think that the NBA will focus on stars, but which stars do they think we should focus on more is what they will be focusing on. Take a drink or well, actually, no, don't do any of that. After I just said stars so many times or focus or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting situation. I think the more that the league pays attention to it, the more people will start to wonder, okay, well, this is what we can do. But we talked about, well, you guys talked about AD. Any updates that you guys want to share on AD? Anything you guys want to let out of your system? Because I'm gonna give you guys maybe like 3 minutes just to voice your displeasure on how the Lakers or AD is playing, considering this is we're not a Lakers centric podcast, but there are a lot of Laker fans here. I think 75% of us are. So
Yeah,
we'll-
75.
yeah, my math is right. The floor is yours. You guys got 3 minutes.
So here's the thing. I can't be 110% mad, but I won't lie. It's been a fucking frustrating season. It's just like our stars cannot be on the same court like at the same time, if ever. You know, Dennis Schroeder just got hurt the other night. Uh,
Safety
uh
protocols.
COVID, yeah.
safety protocol. Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry, my apologies, but I'm just look. AD's coming back from an injury that could have been worse. I'm okay with that. And yes, it's gonna take time to get him acclimated back into the lineup. But I cannot hold my displeasure this season. I've been frustrated what I've been seeing from Anthony Davis this year. I know it's been a short off season, but like quoting what Gerrel said, he's a AD, you're a fucking professional. We expect the best out of you, and we were hoping, me and Jarrell were both hoping, at least Skyler as well, that AD would take the huge step this season, but we just haven't. AD,
Right.
let's be clear. Anthony Davis has been fucking subpar this year.
Right.
He's been
Okay.
subpar this year.
Right.
And-
Subpar. Okay, go ahead, G.
All right, bro. Okay, look, the Lakers got people, and I know that as Lakers fans, we hype players up that are on these teams, but these are professional players. These aren't scrubs. We have solid contributing pieces on this roster. So what's frustrating to me is that even when the Warriors winning championships, and Curry would sit out a game, or Klay Thompson was out a game, or whatever the case may be, players stepped up. And I understand they had 4 All-Stars, but what the fuck is going on? Ain't no way we should be losing this many games. And it's pissing me off to see Andre Drummond missing open dunks. It's pissing me off to see that all of a sudden when you come to the Lakers and you put that jersey on, you can't shoot for shit. I don't know what Wesley Matthews is doing. Frank Vogel, I'm going to talk about him too as well, because some of his rotations really irritate me. Ben McLemore had an amazing first quarter where we almost had 15 points in the first quarter, maybe 17, and you don't keep them in. What are you doing? We are trying to win games. We have our all-stars out. I could go on. Give me the time, but
Yeah.
Lakers been pissing me off.
What about you, Skyler? Just let it all out. You have a minute.
Dude, Lakers are playing for a championship. I called them repeating at the beginning of the season, and that's still where my head is at. This is the regular season. I think Anthony Davis needed serious rest. Very unfortunate with the LeBron injury. I mean, come on, to have them both out. But I did say on this podcast that I think that it will end up being the best case scenario for the Lakers. Man, it's tough to keep that faith right now, but I still am. What I saw from Anthony Davis the other night, I mean, I got to take a bit of an optimistic turn here after, very fair takes by he and Daniel. My goodness, it's been pretty brutal and it's hard to find the good. But seriously, I really do believe that. I loved Anthony Davis the other night, getting that mid-range going, 25 points, superhuman block at the end of the game. And that just gave me hope of what we have in Anthony Davis, and that he can find a way to step it up this year. Of course, it's been a frustrating season to see them not perform at the highest level, but I think they'll get there.
All
I know they'll get there. I really believe it.
All right. Well, it's a good thing you have that faith, because someone has to. I mean, everyone put all the vinegar and stuff in people's drinks or whatever. God,
I'm
so
still going to
sour.
drink it.
Super sour. But speaking of which, sourness is one of those things that kind of happens when you have a coach that's kind of underperforming. And so, really quickly, what do you guys think about the Pacers head coach, Nate Bjorkgren, being potentially fired? Because right now they're 9th in the Eastern Conference. He's not necessarily getting along with his star players, whatever star players they do have. And they think that if he doesn't repair those relationships quickly, that could be the end of it. Terry Stotts might get fired as well, per Shams, barring a miracle playoff run, even though Jason Kidd might be a replacement. And Mike Budenholzer is likely gone unless the Bucks make it to at least the Eastern Conference Finals. Any quick thoughts on those 3 coaching news things?
I don't have any particular strong thoughts on Indiana per se. I just think that's a franchise that's in the middle right now, and I suspect with the way things have been going on in recent years, that they're on the way down. It's a miracle that they have held to relevancy this long, ever since their trading of Paul George, like a couple of years back. It's like they did pretty well after losing their star. A lot of franchises would have absolutely folded under the pressure. But as far as Coach Budenholzer goes, that's the one I feel very strongly about. I think there's a lot of pressure going on in this season. I think the Bucks have been overshadowed by the Nets, even though the Nets have been, have struggled to get order at times. So I think the pressure mostly comes from the fans desperately wanting that championship. My gut feeling is I don't think Milwaukee is ready to go to the NBA to the finals this year. So I think Budenholzer is gone if he doesn't get there at least.
Right.
I feel like these are all fair expectations. The Bucks, it's tough now because you got so many stronger teams in the East now with the 76ers being healthy with Joel Embiid, MVP candidate, and now the Brooklyn Nets. But the Bucks aren't making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. We're not even talking about the finals. They might not make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. So it might be needing a change of direction within Milwaukee because they're trying to force it to Giannis a lot. And I know you guys talked about having Bradley Beal be that 1-2 punch with Giannis, and obviously, Mike Budenholzer isn't able to establish some type of offense that allows them to be one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. Same thing goes with Terry Stotts. He hasn't done much. I mean, what have the Blazers done? I know there's been an unfortunate situation because there's been a lot of injuries. Each year there's been a major injury. So that's where the one that I'm kind of iffy on. I don't even know who the hell the Pacers head coach is, so he could go.
Nate Nordgren?
I don't know who that guy is. He could go.
So he replaced Nate McMillan after Nate McMillan helped the Pacers make it to the playoffs.
So in that case,
I didn't agree with it.
That case, peace, because Nate McMillan had him in the playoffs and he got fired. So why y'all think about keeping somebody that can't get you to the playoffs? Yeah.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Skyler?
Pretty interesting stuff, as far as the Pacers. Yeah, I think they already replaced the coach recently. So really, if you're going to go for coaching change there, you got to really think of someone who can work with Sabonis and also Malcolm Brogdon, one of the most intelligent human beings in the NBA, let alone players. Guy is just special all around, his foundation, everything.
Underrated.
Shout out to Malcolm Brogdon. I've learned a lot from listening to him, and overall an amazing player too. Like really, that Rookie of the Year season. And that brings us to, if he was still on Milwaukee, oh my goodness. Would have been such a good fit. So that's really tough there. For Milwaukee, though, I do think at this point, something needs to change. And if they can't get a Bradley Beal type player, you got Giannis Antetokounmpo. Michael Jordan have to have a coaching switch. Phil Jackson came in. They won championships. And when you got a player as special as Giannis, you got to switch it up. You got to go for it. And so I think that makes sense. And then the Trailblazers, I really like that move. Damian Lillard is one of the most special clutch players I've ever seen. And he just deserves every single shot to get a championship, to be the best version of himself that he can get. And I think that, he really likes Terry Stotts. It's a great thing, but Damian Lillard with, a player coach like Jay Kidd, who, I think Jay Kidd retired right when Lillard came into the league, but obviously Lillard grew up watching Jay Kidd. If you're a point guard in the NBA, you know Jay Kidd and you know his skills and you know what he did.
From the same area.
Yeah.
Bay
and
area.
So I think, what?
They both from Bay Area.
Well, from the Bay Area. There you go, G. Good point. And so I think that could be a really nice fit. You got Melo, too, who played against Jay Kidd. I think that could be a lot of fun. I think Portland's a special team. Damian Lillard's a special player, and that they really are going to need a switch up there.
Yeah, and you got to feel for Terry Stotts because he's one of those coaches that everybody likes, but he just, I don't know if it's by, design or whatever, but he has so many different pieces every single year that it's hard to find any consistency. They're always trying to find this wing, this defensive wing. They've gone through Mo Harkless. They've gone through all these different variations, but none just stick. And now he's left to piece together this roster and try to make it work. And to his credit, he's made it work. It just hasn't worked well enough. And, we talk about finding the right pieces and trying to make things work. Well, on the flip side, then, who would be your guys' coach of the year? Because, Skyler, you mentioned CP3. He's doing all of this amazing stuff in Phoenix, but shout out to Monty Williams, who is personally my choice for coach of the year. I mean, the 8-0 bubble run was not a fluke. They just needed CP3, and now look at them. They're what? I think first or battling for first in the loaded Western Conference. So he's my pick for Coach of the Year. What do you guys think?
I'm gonna have to agree with you, Jared. I think Monty Williams for what he did in Phoenix is remarkable. You
Mhm.
got to remember before the season started, um, most of us agreed that Phoenix we saw Phoenix making the playoffs, but they were gonna make the playoffs as a fringe playoff team.
Right.
But like to us, if you asked us, hey, if you told us months ago, hey, Phoenix is somehow gonna top the Western Conference and be the 1 seed, we would have laughed at your faces. I just think yes, I think Phoenix as a 1 seed this year, it's kind of flawed. But hey, it's such a big improvement and a step up from last year and the last 5 years in this franchise in general. It has to be noted because that's a huge jump in improvement.
Big facts, and I couldn't agree more with you guys. Monty Williams deserves it, but for the we can't sleep on Quinn Snyder because think about it. The Utah Jazz have the best record in not only the West but the league. Correct. In addition to that, tied. Okay, but for the most part, they have been on track for having one of the best seasons in their history, right? Since the Karl Malone and John Stockton days. In addition to that, they've been at the top of the rankings for majority of the year. You know what I'm saying? Even when the Lakers had some health, the Jazz were up there. And I know Phoenix was like slowly getting up there. Jazz been at the top of the Western Conference for a while this season. So with that consistency, Donovan Mitchell taking a step up as far as his game and elevating as a leader. I can't sleep on Quinn Snyder. So I think it's going to be out of him and Monty Williams for that Coach of the Year award.
That's fair.
Yeah. I look, you got to agree with Monty Williams. I will say, I said the Phoenix Suns would be fourth and on this podcast, and I understandably people thought I was crazy. Now look at him; it's ridiculous. I didn't expect him to be first. No one did. That's crazy. I mean, the CP3 effect is way too real. It's ridiculous. I think I said this a couple of weeks ago. The guy should have like his own home improvement show. He goes and fixes up a franchise each season. It's amazing. And so, yeah, definitely though, Monty Williams to get the Phoenix Suns to this point, to ride with Booker the way he has, Ayton, and the fact that they are first in the West and the 8-0 streak in the bubble, and they didn't even get into the playoffs, and how bad of a franchise they've been since the Steve Nash 7 seconds or less, Mike D'Antoni, Amare Stoudemire days. It's very impressive what they've done here. This is by far their highest seed since 2010. And so it's going to be really exciting to see them in the playoffs. And I think you got to give it to Monty Williams just because to have that much of a turnaround, that much of an unexpected team. Let's just hope he doesn't get fired like Dwayne Casey did after winning Coach of the Year. Because, that was crazy. Coach of the Year is an honor for sure.
Brutal.
Yeah. And I think this season for the Suns, would arguably be their most successful since that time they won 48 games or whatever, 46 or 48. Between those two numbers with Jeff Hornacek and the three-headed like point guard lineup that they had, them being that successful like 7 years ago and now only finding relevance again. Sheesh, dude, you got to give Monty Williams a ton of credit for making this work, because that's something that nobody really expected. But shout out to him. He deserves it. I mean, especially considering what happened to his family situation too. That was just really, really rough. But shout out to him. We really hope he wins it. But G, you spoke of a leader, right? And we had a pretty contentious week talking about Russell Westbrook and Stephen Curry. Well, Scott Brooks thinks that Russell Westbrook is the second best point guard of all time behind Magic. Do you guys feel that it is true that he is the second best point guard of all time? Just a few bits of stats here before I let you guys go off. So Westbrook could average 0 points, rebounds, and assists for the rest of the year and still average triple-double per ESPN. And he's notched 5 20-plus assist games, the most in NBA history. He's the only player in NBA history with multiple 20 assist, 20 rebound games in NBA history, while Wilt has 1. So really quickly, is Westbrook the second best point guard of all time? I wrote about it on Sportsnaut. He's not. He's probably the third. Whoever because typically the conversation is Magic Johnson and Chris Paul, right? So whoever is number one, whoever else is there is number two. Westbrook is number three. Simply put.
Uh, I think the notion of I think Scott Brooks is look, Russell Westbrook, despite my criticisms of his game, is a very talented player. But the thing is, when you're making every time you make all-time lists, championships player role. Look, Chris Paul does not have championships of his own, but let's be honest, Chris Paul is a much better point guard than Russell Westbrook will ever be because Chris Paul fits the mold of the traditional point guard that Russell Westbrook could. Russell Westbrook, in my opinion, to this, I will die. I will go to the grave to, despite Gerrel's disagreement and other things thrown at me. Russell Westbrook is a point guard with a two-guard mentality. He's not your traditional point guard. Chris Paul is. And plus, despite Russell Westbrook being a better individual player, there's even point guards in today's league that I will take over Russell Westbrook. I will take Kyrie Irving, despite his troubles, over Russell Westbrook. I will take an old CP3 today over a player like Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook, for all his talents, to me, is, in my opinion, and I will say his triple doubles, while maybe impressive, it's certainly not an easy feat. It's a little bit of stat manipulation and stat padding. Russell Westbrook, in my opinion, in today's generation players, is one of the more overrated players to come out in the last 10 to 15 years.
Okay, really quickly, G, before you hop in here. So when I wrote my piece about whether or not Westbrook is the second best, I put him a third, and I took everything that he's done into account. I compared him to Steve Nash, Curry, Lillard, Oscar Robertson in terms of shooting, defense to Gary Payton, rebounding to no one because no one's doing what he's doing, offense to all the aforementioned players and Isaiah Thomas, the older one, and whatever else. And I deduced that taking his entire career, all his statistical achievements and whatnot into account, he still could potentially be one of the best or the second best, potentially. But yeah, go ahead, G. You're chomping at the bit.
This podcast could turn into just a debate on Russell Westbrook, and I'm not gonna do that. Daniel had a lot of stuff to say. I do want to throw a name out there that I feel is not getting enough attention. John Stockton is one of the greatest point guards of all time. If we're talking about true point guards, do you see how much career?
Will always better than a rest.
Go ahead, G. Go ahead.
That's a lot.
Daniel, I'm about to come for you, bro. I'm about to come for you because you just throwing a lot of dirt on my guy Russ, and I just got to keep defending him because that's Brody right there, and I don't understand it. But let me get back to my point that I was making. You want to talk about a legit point guard? John Stockton is the blueprint. Consistency. We're looking at assists, playmaking, being able to get teammates involved. This guy used to average 15 assists daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, season wise. His career averages. He has a total of 15,000 assists. Nobody's touching that. The closest person to it is probably at 10 or 12,000. You can fact check that. In addition to that, he was still putting up 15 points a game. In addition to that, was still getting you 2 to 2.5 steals a game. So you want to talk about all around point guard, and he shot well from three. John Stockton is up there in that top three-ish for me. Russell Westbrook will go down in history as one of the best point guards ever because he impacts the game in multiple facets. I don't care what you think about a player. Dog, if you ever play basketball, if you ever watch basketball, it's about stats, my guy. You can't win without getting rebounds, facilitating the ball, and scoring. There's no way in hell you could tell me you pad stats, because how are you getting up to being able to even have the idea of padding stats? Let me make that make sense. I want to get a triple double, right? I got to get 9 assists to get the 10th assist. You feel what I'm saying? How the whole game am I padding stats? Please tell me. How am I padding it? In addition to that, you have to make the basket. Russell Westbrook is setting his teammates up to score. What is the object of the game? Score and stop others from scoring. So if Russell Westbrook has the ability to do that, how does that not make him a point guard? And I got to switch my positioning in my seat because this gets me heated. It gets me fired. Like I need to go on the court. I gotta go out. And I think what hits me a little bit is I'm not Russell Westbrook, but I feel like I play like Russell Westbrook. Reckless. I get turnovers. I try to get people involved. I want to score. I'm not shooting a lot of threes. If I do shoot threes, it's not a good high percentage, but to sit here and say that somebody at 6'3" is out hustling a 6'11", 6'10", 7-footers who come out into this league, shout out to Andrea Bargnati, who can't average over 5 rebounds. He is 6'3", and he's averaging a double 10 rebounds, and you sit up here telling me that's patent stat. That is heart. He is a dog. Russell Westbrook is going to be a top 5 point guard in the league. He already is. He has MVPs. Go down the list and name NBA point guards in the leagues that have MVPs. Who you got? Steve Nash. Who you got? Russell Westbrook, Derrick Rose, Chris Paul ain't got no MVP. You come on now.
Curry.
And you sit up here telling me Curry's up there too. And you sit up here telling me that he ain't gonna be no top point guard. He's top 5. He's top 5. He's top 5.
I gotta respond.
All you, Daniel.
Look, Gerrel, I get it. Look, stats are important in the game of basketball. To be a good player, you gotta put up good stats. But the thing you're forgetting is, I think you're getting the objective of basketball wrong. The objective of basketball isn't to put up stats. At the end of the day, the objective of basketball is to lead your team night in, night out, getting the W and leading them to championships.
And he's not doing that. He's not doing that. And he's not doing that. And you talk about listen.
Really
and you sit here and say you pick Kyrie Irving over Russell Westbrook, and Kyrie Irving's put Kyrie Irving in a Russell Westbrook situation. Russell Westbrook took Steven fucking Adams, the Oklahoma City Thunder, to the playoffs. Kyrie Irving never did that. He needs a superstar. And you sit up here telling me the person that's doing all of this 2020, shout out to Nipsey Hussle, 2020 stats. The game of basketball is about stats. How the fuck do you win a game? You got to score. You got to outscore people. You got to get assists. The top teams in the NBA that wins championships are usually the tops in all of those statistical categories. You play freaking fantasy basketball. What is it about? Stats. You play basketball in the NBA. If you want to get an MVP, you want to get an all-star, what do you got to put down? Stats. So what the fuck is really going on?
really quickly. Let me interject here. Take a breath. Relax.
Ooh-wee.
Just relax.
Wow.
So
I'm relaxed. I love it. I love this debate. It's all love for all those that's listening. Me and Daniel don't have no hate for each other, but this is what y'all come to listen to. Y'all come to listen to us talking shit, shooting bricks. This is what the podcast's all about. So keep tuning in and go ahead, Jarrod.
Really quickly, going off of the triple doubles and wins thing, right? So I saw somewhere, I think it was on Twitter, that Russell Westbrook, whenever he has a triple double, his teams are, I think, like 100 plus and 22 or something like that.
That's a W.
Yeah, they've won 100 more games than they've lost. Think about that. We often think it's just empty stats, but this dude may be stat padding.
Yeah.
But at the same time, his teams have won, I think, 60 or 70% of their games every time he has a friggin' triple double. That's outstanding. But go ahead, Skyler. We've elected not to have you say anything, but go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was tuned into that there, and appreciate Daniel and G really letting us know how they feel. That was great. And so, anyways, though, I mean, can't follow up with too much after that. I mean, that was amazing. But anyways, for real though, I love me some Russell Westbrook. I always have, and to me, I've started to really view him as this modern day Allen Iverson type of figure. And to me, Allen Iverson is easily a top 30 player of all time. Allen Iverson won an MVP. Allen Iverson went to the finals. Allen Iverson changed the game a bit, but he changed the culture massively. Russell Westbrook is an actual game changer. He's made it to the NBA finals. He's changed the meaning of a triple-double single-handedly. And I do agree with what G said as far as it's not stat padding. I mean, 9 assists, like you can't just get 9 assists out of nowhere. You can't get 20 rebounds out of nowhere. Like, what? This guy is so special. And seriously, I think the main thing is just appreciate Russ while he's here. Appreciate Russ while he's here. This guy has made mincemeat out of the triple-double. I mean, seriously, we were like, Charles Barkley used to put Oscar Robertson in his top 5 because he averaged a triple-double for a season, and saying, how do you not put a guy who averaged a triple? Russell Westbrook is about to do it for the 4th time in 5 seasons. I know I said this last week, but it's truly incredible. It really is. So for me, as far as him being the second best point guard, that's very difficult. It really is, because to me, the best point guard is, where do you rank on the all-time standings? And to me, Steph Curry is higher than Russell Westbrook. I mean, it depends. If you're talking pure positionally and you're considering Steph Curry more of this new generation point guard, I get it. Sure. You want to say Chris Paul, sure. But at this point, with what Westbrook has done for the game, I don't know, man. I mean, we'll see where he finishes up. We'll see what the Wizards do in the play-in tournament. Russ ain't slowing down.
You got to say something.
Give him a position. He could surpass CP3.
Ooh.
Oh, no.
I think he could surpass CP3 when you look at how much he's changed the game, what he's done, and how unique he is. I mean, CP3 is just an incredible point guard. He's amazing, but we've never seen anything like Russell Westbrook. And to me, that's the definition of a Hall of Famer.
I think the way that you can look at each, like CP3 and Russell Westbrook, is that, like you said, Skyler, Russell Westbrook was a literal game changer, but CP3 is the prototypical point guard. So you can't necessarily go wrong with either. Just to play it safe, he's top 5.
Yeah. To answer G's question, I will say I think he finishes 3, because for me, I think Steph Curry is already a top 15 player. And when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking of it as greatest players of all time.
Right.
Where do you rank as a point guard? And so for me, that's why it's going to be tough without any championships for him to eclipse Curry. Oh man, it's tough. But I think for me, he's number 3 point guard, and I think he's really changing the game. And we're all subject to recency bias, so let's enjoy it for now and see where he ends up. He could end up number 2. You never know what else could happen and how high he could go. But I think we really gotta just appreciate what he's doing right now.
Absolutely. Just like when you hosted the podcast a few weeks ago, when you brought the Curry thing, how do we contextualize what Stephen Curry is doing? Just enjoy the moment. Just enjoy it, because we're probably never going to see anything like this ever again. We live in the golden age of point guards and basketball in general. We're seeing all of these great, amazing talents. Let's just enjoy it, because we don't know what's going to happen. So.
But let's still argue and debate, because it makes for good content as well.
Good content, man. Good content. But yeah, something that is not good content, and I really, really hate to bring this up, but COVID, it is still a thing. The world is getting vaccinated. I saw that I think 1.7 billion doses have been administered globally. For the people listening in India, we wish you really, really good health. I know things have gotten really, really bad over there. But let's hope that everything goes well with you guys. A lot of people have been suffering. So well wishes, prayers goes out to India and everything that's going on. Hopefully you guys are able to figure all that stuff out. But yeah, COVID is still a thing. I figured this would be an interesting topic to talk about, because we don't necessarily see the effects that COVID does to basketball players. And that's kind of a really interesting subject that, as someone who's gotten it, I want to see how it affects professional level athletes. And I was reading up on an article written by Tom Haberstroh, and I have a list of players here, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but I think it's really interesting to hear their firsthand experiences with COVID. And I just want to get your thoughts once I talk about this. But Jason Tatum still has issues with breathing, and he, quote, doesn't feel the same that he did before he had it. And he requires an inhaler prior to the game, right? This dude is what, 23, 22, 19? He's been 19 forever, but that's the thing. But yeah, Evan Fournier, his teammate, said, I've been feeling really weird. Sometimes I struggle to focus, and my depth perception is really bad right now. And he talks about feeling like he has a constant concussion. Fred VanVleet said, I just felt the sickness. I could just feel it in me. I could feel it in my bones, my blood, and my muscles. Josh Richardson didn't really go into specifics. He just said, COVID is tough. It's hard to really understand the toughness of it until you go through it. Dario Saric was even more vague, saying, it was hard, I can't lie. And Nasir Little was probably the most, most open about it when he said that he lost 20 pounds in 3 weeks. Quote, I'm not trying to sound morbid or anything, but it was to the point where it was like you just don't want to feel anything. It was really that bad. And everyone is affected by it, and nobody really knows how long the symptoms last or how it will affect someone in the future. And I just want to get your guys' thoughts on this. COVID is still a thing. And if these professional basketball players are still going through this, do you think the NBA should have potentially like kind of like an insurance plan saying that, hey, if you guys are forced to retire early, God forbid, or something happens because of COVID related symptoms, should they have something in place like that?
Absolutely. I think the NBA should insure these players. We still don't know much about this disease, and it's such a new disease. We're not going to know much for a while. It's going to be little info that flows in here and there, but it's going to take years to fully understand the true nature of this disease. First of all, my heart goes out to the people of India. What they're going through is absolutely brutal, and it's absolutely depressing and tragic. But I am just praying that there is light down the end of the tunnel, because those people are truly suffering. This is a serious disease. The most starking that you just read out, Jarrod, was that Jason Tatum, for basketball is a sport that depends so much on cardio and being, your lungs play such a big role. And despite his young age, he's now having trouble breathing. That's when like, hey, this disease will attack parts that you could never imagine. So I think the NBA needs to, it's obvious that this disease can have symptoms that can be ever so long lasting. So I think it's only common sense at this point that the league needs to prepare, because you never know what symptoms causes a player to retire, like you said. So yeah, like the NBA has to do this. Adam Silver has to be thinking about this.
Yeah, and going off really quickly on your point about the symptoms, I got COVID last July 2020, or June 2020, and I've still been feeling leftover symptoms to the point where sometimes I can't even smell properly. Like I'll smell a specific scent that no one else can smell, and doctors don't know what it is. Like I've asked multiple doctors what it is, they don't know what it is, and they said, you know what, it's probably just a COVID thing. That's something that you're just gonna have to deal with. And I'm like, all right, cool. So it's such a weird situation. But go ahead, G.
Just echoing much of what Daniel said, sending love, prayers, and blessings to India, as well as all of these NBA players to have the confidence to be able to share this information with the world as well. I know that within our society, we like to hide a lot of things or not talk about it as much, and it's kind of died down as far as the discussion. That's why I'm glad that you said it, Jarrod, that COVID is still a thing. It hasn't went anywhere, although we're trying to get some sort of normalcy back into our lives. So to be able to share some of the issues that players are going through, I think this is awesome, because people need to know. Some athletes that probably have experienced it that aren't in the NBA, or just anybody that's probably outside of athletics that are experiencing these certain things, can kind of relate to Jason Tatum. Maybe like they have an inhaler as well now because of COVID symptoms. So this is just being aware, making it aware, keeping it in the front of our minds, because it's not completely over, is a necessary thing. And I agree with you as far as that policy going to kind of help NBA players if they do have to face a certain shortage of their NBA career, if they have to retire or anything of that nature, God forbid. But yeah, if the NBA can do it, they're making billions of dollars, especially those owners of teams. They should be able to implement some type of policy that allows players to have some type of thing to fall on when it comes to their health.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think, first of all, definitely shout out to India. I was supposed to go to my friend's wedding there eventually, and don't think that'll be happening for a while, but great country, know a lot about it, and just prayers up to them and all the best wishes. Overall, very brave of Fournier to open up the way he did. It was kind of heartbreaking reading that. I believe it was in an interview with Rachel Nichols, and that was tough to hear he was struggling like that, but it's important. Good for him. And yeah, I think the insurance stuff makes sense, especially because the NBA had this doomsday clause at one point with COVID and salary restrictions. So why wouldn't you have it with the player's health? I think it's a really natural step. I think that's a good idea. And yeah, just prayers up to everyone. Stay safe, and hopefully we can sort of get back to some kind of new normal safely. Shout out to Cali for doing pretty well on that front.
Absolutely. And speaking of shout outs, a few quick hitters here. Shout out to the WNBA because their 25th season, Gia, I see you're excited. Their 25th season starts on May 14th. They're going to play 32 regular season games. And G, you talked about awareness. Well, the WNBA is partnering up with Google to bring in more viewers to watch the game, which is a fantastic thing. I mean, all of us here, even though our watching scale, whatever watchability of the WNBA varies to some degree, but we still overall enjoy the game. It is a fun thing to watch, especially, when it comes to there's no basketball. This is a very, very good substitute. I mean, I don't know why people keep bashing it, but WNBA starting up on May 14th. You guys excited?
Absolutely.
Yep, definitely excited. I support the women's game. I think for basketball to succeed or sports to succeed in general, I think men and women deserve a fair and equal shot, and that includes the attention that each gender side of the sport is getting. I think the more attention the women's games gets, the overall quality of basketball improves in general. I think I think the future outlook for the WNBA is going to be very positive, especially with the oncoming superstar that with her name happens to be Sabrina Ionescu. I think the league there's some rosy waters up on the corner
Nice.
for sure.
Absolutely excited. I've expanded teams. Like I'm a Sparks fan, but I'm going for the Aces, and I'm also going for the Sky.
Yeah.
Shout out Candace Parker. But yeah,
We'll get
it
her on
starts.
the podcast someday.
Absolutely, we'll get on the podcast. I'll take her out to a date. All of that jazz. Yep, I'm trying to get married. Anyways, yeah, but nah. All serious, we shoot shots out here. We're not calling it Shooting Bricks podcast for. Well, that didn't sound right. I want to shoot a swish on that shot. So never mind. I take that back. Recall that statement. But anyways, back to what I was saying. WNBA jerseys are looking magnificent. I'm gonna have to pop up with my Aja Wilson jersey next week so you guys can see it. It's dope. I'm really excited for this season. Like I said, just getting to understand and learn more of the players that are involved in this league. I just cannot wait for this season to unravel, and I can't wait to hear what Skyler has to say.
Absolutely. As someone who's followed Kobe Bryant my entire life, the WNBA has just been such a big part of his legacy. I want to say right away, rest in peace to Gianna Bryant, because she would have been the Michael Jordan of the WNBA.
No
but
doubt.
what Kobe Bryant did for the awareness of the women's game and how much it's growing and in viewership, I really think we're at a point where it's going to take off. I think this will be a really big season. Absolutely. No, it's an exciting game, exciting players, exciting storylines. Social justice has been prominent in the WNBA right at the forefront since before it was truly at the forefront of the NBA. They've been real pioneers on that front. And overall, just you got to support the women's game, and Diana Taurasi dominating the way she does, and Sue Bird and the Seattle Storm, Asia Wilson coming off the MVP season, Candace Parker on the Chicago Sky. I mean, it's just a whole other setting of storylines while also growing another aspect of the game. So personally, I'm really hyped. I hope that it gets more coverage and more access so that we can more easily follow. And yes, Sabrina Ionescu, trained by Kobe Bryant, only a women's college player to get 2,000 points, 1,000 assists, 1,000 rebounds in college. Come on. There's so much talent and skill, and it deserves all the coverage and credit in the world. And I personally hope to be in a position to pay a lot more attention to the WNBA. So shout out to all the media outlets, give it the proper coverage, and let's go. I think it's going to be its best season yet.
Absolutely. Last year, they recorded record numbers across the board in terms of viewership and whatnot. So this is probably their best shot of expanding on that, use this as a stepping stone, and just explode into bigger, better things. But lastly, before we wrap things up here, Skyler, you mentioned Melo. And shout out to Melo because he cracked the top 10 all-time scoring list. The interesting part is that every player ahead of him either has an MVP, championship, or both. And so I want to quiz you guys, right? Can you name the other 9 players on the list and roughly how many points they have? Can you guys do it? You know, you guys have to do it because I'm forcing you on the spot. So, who are the
Well-
other 9 players on the list?
Kareem is up there. Michael Jordan. We got Kobe Bryant.
We'll take it one at a time.
Oh.
So you said Kareem.
hmm
How many points do you think he roughly has?
38,000.
Yeah.
Okay. He's number 1. Go ahead. And feel free to whoever else, if you guys want to hop in here, feel
Karl
free to just hop
Malone is
in.
number 2 with roughly 36.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 36,928.
Okay, so roughly 37,
Yeah.
but in the 36.
I will say I'm gonna have to guess here. I'm gonna put Jordan in third.
No.
Come on, bro. You tripping with that one, dog. Come on now.
Okay.
You know who it
Whoa,
is.
whoa, whoa.
Jordan-
Well, you don't. So the thing is,
Co-
he
it's
is
Co-
correct.
Kobe.
I know.
So okay. So Michael is in there. Do you know
Yes.
how many points roughly he has, Daniel?
I'm bad with numbers. I can't really estimate. Probably much more down on the list, but
Around 32, if I recall, for
Thir-
Michael.
yeah.
And he's fifth.
30,
He's fifth.
32,292, Skyler.
Yeah, and he's
There's-
fifth.
Right. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 left.
Kobe is 4, 33,636, if I recall correctly. Something around
43,
that.
643.
643.
Uh,
Okay, I was off by a couple.
Dirk is in there.
LBJ.
Who wants to go first?
Dirk.
Okay, how many?
30, 32.
31,560, Dirk.
Where's he at though? He's 6, isn't he?
He is 6th, yes.
And number 3 is LBJ, LeBron James I haven't kept up, but probably at 34,000 now at this point.
You guys want to take any other guesses before I tell you?
Yeah. Shaq is in that list as well, isn't he?
Oh, wait, no, for LeBron. Because
Oh,
LeBron is on the list, but do you know roughly how many points he has? And
He just-
counting.
he's. I'm with Skyler, 34,000, because he passed Kobe. Kobe was at what 33 ish
Mhm.
last year. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with 34.
Daniel? No?
no, I can't. I'm bad at these type of games.
LeBron, 35,318 and counting.
Oh,
Damn.
Damn.
You guys have 3 left.
You counted Shaq?
Okay. Roughly how many points?
Why you say okay? Like I'm gonna give that to you. 30. Dirk passed Shaq, so I'm gonna say 31,000, right?
28,596.
Hey, we out of the 30. Dang, okay, we got
All right.
how many more?
2 left.
Jeez.
I think the one that Melo might pass next is probably the toughest one. But
I know he just passed Elvin Hayes, if I recall
Right.
correctly.
yep. Do you know how many points?
For Elvin Hayes?
Yeah, do you know how many points he's had in total?
Oh man, like 26 something. I think.
27,313.
Dang, this is tough. Is it a older player? Like we talking?
2 hints. They're both older and they're both bigs.
Will Chamberlain?
Of course.
Well,
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
How many points do you think?
30,
Roughly.
30K.
31,419.
Damn.
There's
He
one
said-
left.
All right. So I used to do a lot of these Sporkle quizzes as a kid. Top 10
All right,
scoring
man.
all
In
time.
the clutch. This is your
Moses
Kobe
Malone.
moment. Ooh.
Ah,
You know how much?
I'm gonna go 28.
27,409.
dang.
So
I say we did a good job.
absolutely. You know, Skyler with the clutch shot there at the end, getting Moses, which personally I didn't think any of you guys would get, but shout out to Skyler. But yeah, can you believe it? All of those guys ahead of him either have an MVP championship or both. So
And that's why Melo is so. I mean, I wrote an article for Fanside called Carmelo's Redemption. I Googled the guy's name every day when he was out of a league to find out, like, is this real?
Yeah.
Are people really forgetting who this guy is? And it's been, very validating to see Carmelo Anthony excel at this level. Great player, great person. And it's been amazing to see him rise above the hate. You know, he got so much of it to the point where he was out of the league because of it. Teams didn't want to take a chance on him. And now he's balling out. He's mellow. He's the same mellow he's always been, just a little bit older and wiser. But shout out to a really amazing career on his end.
Stay
Absolutely.
mellow.
Stay mellow. Absolutely. And before we wrap things up, I just want to say, don't forget to subscribe to the Shooting Bricks podcast and leave a review on your platform of choice. It really helps us out. Lastly, make sure to follow us on @PodcastBricks on Twitter, @ShootingBricksPodcast on Instagram, and @The Shooting Bricks Podcast on YouTube for all the news and the video of this episode of the Shooting Bricks Podcast. And as always, I'm Jarrod Castillo.
Shout out to Salt and Straw Ice Cream in Venice Beach. You guys are amazing. I promise we are not a sponsor of Salt and Straw. I'm just singing their praises. And
But if
shout
you
out
want to sponsor
the,
us, totally fine.
Yeah, and of course, but also shout out to Marvel Studios. Great. I think Phase 4 is going to be fantastic. This is Daniel Nguyen joining me as well.
And I think Gerrel would agree with me here. Forget 2K and all the BS because, but anyways, shout out to WNBA. 25 seasons is not a small feat. They're about to explode, just like the Shooting Bricks podcast is going to explode. You guys listening out there, you guys have so many hot takes to communicate with us, and you put it in our DMs and you text us. Drop it on the comments below our post. Let's get this activity going. But of course, it's your boy Gerrel Sales, and of course we have.
Yo, what up? This is Skyler, and shout out to Carmelo Anthony for never giving up. I mean, to think of the fact that this guy was out of the league, every article was written about him, that it was over. He played his last game and he scored 2 points with the Houston Rockets. He got cut like a freshman in high school, and he's now the number 10 scorer of all time. It shows the power of never giving up. So shout out to you, Carmelo Anthony. Pleasure to have followed your whole career for my whole life.
Absolutely. Shout out to Mello. Shout out to the WNBA. Shout out to everyone who's listening to this podcast. And we will see everyone else next week.